Hello everyone, I'm Forrest McFreelove, and this is Speedplay Netherlands number 25. We left off with the release of the expansion Cossacks, which means we have quite a bit different all of a sudden. For one, we have to set up a colonial focus. I decided to get the one that makes no revolts happen, as quite frankly we only have one place we need to colonize, and it keeps getting killed by revolts, so this will just take care of it in the easiest way possible. We're also moments away from being able to start integrating our Czech Republic client state, which is very nice. Unfortunately, we can't really declare war on very many people due to just the diplomatic situation. We may be able to find a relatively easy to declare war in the near future. We also have a humongous issue with the liberty desire of our subjects. For whatever reason, with the expansion, our subjects' liberty desires have all been just hurtled up to a worrying degree, and really only a couple of our client states even have loyalty to us right now. So we're going to just build even more transports. The plan was to just go expand into essentially just the rest of the world outside of Europe. We'll still do that. However, we're probably going to aim for Africa right now. The reason we're aiming for Africa and not somewhere more distant is mainly because I'm very, very worried that our colonial nations and maybe even a couple client states of ours are going to try to break away from us. In fact, we even have one at 100% liberty desire, which honestly, up until these next coming months, I was convinced meant that it had to rebel, that it actually would be forced to rebel against us. So I kept all of my forces in port with the major elements of our navy guarding them, because I was quite frankly convinced that we were in a matter of moments going to have to fight a very serious and brutal series of wars against our own colonial nations. Now, it doesn't end up happening, and that's honestly a very odd thing, as I never read anything indicating that 100% liberty desire would no longer make them declare independence wars. At any rate, we focus on just internal management of our estates. They were automatically assigned provinces, and we just get whatever bonuses we can from them. I did that in part to just explore the options, and also to just delay with our armies at the ready in case a revolt broke out in the next couple of weeks or months. We begin assigning provinces to trade companies in Africa, and we're going to just go ahead and expand our position in Africa in order to just fully develop more trade companies. Ideally, we'll take a decent portion of the coastline. We can also get the interior to be colored like our country, which is kind of nice. It's a good visual plus. I do go ahead and attempt to rather belatedly get the map mode ready, and we're going to go and just sort of attempt to get merchants out of every single possible trade region. So we go ahead and send our forces south to declare war on the Congo. It'll bring us into war with Benin and also Spain. Now, Spain's obviously the larger issue with that, and honestly, Congo probably won't be a threat, and neither will Benin. We do go ahead and just begin sieging. At this point, there are some very high-level forts that we have to deal with, and there is a Spanish army up in the north, so we just sort of reunify our northern stack. I am still incredibly worried about the potential of a large colonial revolt, so we're going to be a little more measured in our actions. You'll notice there's very little combat going on in the New World. I believe that's because all of the colonial nations are disloyal and thus aren't actually helping their overlords fight. Now, I can't really prove that in any way, however, that just seems to be the most realistic reason. At any rate, our Italian March and client state is doing a lot of the heavy lifting. We also have the Czech Republic helping us. Unfortunately, and incredibly worryingly, none of our other client states are doing very much at all to help us. Even the true French state is just keeping its armies inside of its own borders. So, at this point, it's becoming rather apparent that all of our actions in Europe may have just been setting up not our replacements, but we may have been giving unfriendly or potentially unfriendly regimes massive amounts of power with which they can attack us. So that is deeply and truly worrying. We can probably just placate their local rulers at a cost of immense amounts of prestige, although quite frankly I'm not very excited to do that either. For whatever reason it lags severely as I try to make peace with the Spanish, and they won't accept peace anyway, so we may as well just keep pressing forward. Luckily, we don't really have to deal with the Spanish armies whatsoever, as our client states are doing most of the heavy lifting, despite the fact that only half of them are actually helping. So with that going on, we really only have to worry about continuing our sieges and maintaining a constant readiness for the moment our client states and colonial nations may attempt to break free. Now, ultimately, even if we do lose a significant portion of our overseas empire, we still dominate Europe ourselves. We have almost all of the German region, and really in the next few years we'll be able to clean up the borders to the fullest extent that I want to, and we'll be able to truly focus on, well, suppressing the colonies and also expanding our just global empire. We're definitely going to take as much as we can of Africa just on the way, and we'll essentially just move the armies, well, just from Africa further along into India and then Southeast Asia, and we'll see how far we get just in a constant wave of conquests. We do go ahead and just fully annex this country, and we're able to core them for ridiculously cheap compared to the lands we've been taking in Europe, which is really amazing news. This means that we'll be able to move at just an absurd rate throughout Africa and hopefully into India. I'm a little less worried now about the threat of massive colonial revolt, in part because they just haven't revolted yet, quite frankly. I mean, we launched a serious war against the Spanish. We managed to take Gibraltar and a few other random territories. The war wasn't really against the Spanish, although we'll probably end up fighting a few others against them to just push them out of Africa. We also get the Dutch Congo, a massive map addition to our empire, and at this rate we can also give one of these provinces off the coast of Italy to our Italian client state, and that way we can go press into Sardinia. We deal with the small revolt that had been plaguing the Spanish in our lands, and at this rate we declare war on Aragon. That brings in the French, not our client state, and we just march through. It also brought the Spanish back in, however their armies were just destroyed, so I'm not too worried about that. We fill our armies up with high siege leaders and begin sieging these French provinces in West Africa, although they have massive forts, so it will take some time. In Europe, I don't really fear the Spanish all that much. They are landing in our true French state's territory. Hopefully that means it'll actually wake that client state up to deal with them. And at any rate, the Italian client state has managed to take over a decent portion. We also declare war on Sardinia itself in order to just purge them and add them to the Italian client state. Now, an awesome part about this new expansion is that instead of just giving our client states or vassals land in the peace deal, we can just grant it to them, and it increases their relation with us, which is awesome. It gives you a massive bonus and actually really encourages vassal feeding, which is awesome. Admittedly, they are more prone to rebellion, or not rebellion, more prone to high liberty desire than they used to be, which is a bit sad. I guess you can just sort of improve your vassals and client states to the point that they no longer help you, which is exactly what we ended up doing. At any rate, though, for the sake of great borders, I really do want to get rid of the remaining French rump state and get Roussillon to our true French client state. While that may make them more disloyal and it may be a problem for us in the long run, I really do want to just clean up the borders of Europe just a bit. We still have to deal with the East. We might even create a new client state over in the East. However, at this point, we are really just proceeding well. It is a massive bummer that the true French state is disloyal. Hopefully we'll be able to change that in time. At any rate, we are just pressing through, dominating the Spanish. I don't really want very much land from Spain. Admittedly, we might be able to carve out a new client state out of Iberia itself, although realistically I'm not too inclined to do that. We're already at our full diplomatic relations limit. I would rather just steal the occasional colony off of Spain, just to begin fully directing ourselves to essentially just the rest of the world. And now that we can actually get our map color over the Terra, not Terra Incognita, but over the wasteland, I do kind of want to just peel off all of the Spanish colonies that we can in order to just make our name larger on the map. It's not the greatest goal, however, it is something I kind of want to do. At any rate, we get a few nice events. Unfortunately, it lowers the loyalty of one of our estates, and honestly, at this point, I find myself really wanting the estate to rebel, simply because it's just a little draining dealing with the thought that our entire colonial empire might rebel at any point, but they're just not doing it, as that's a lot more limiting than a civil war, because at least then we'd be able to fight the civil war and, solve the problem. At this rate, we're just sort of forced to leave our horrendously disloyal clients as just that, a tremendous problem. At any rate, though, we are still able to expand the empire, and that is great news. After just this few series of wars that will clean up the borders of our client states a bit in the west, we're probably going to focus almost certainly into, well, just expanding our empire in the old world. It'll be territories that, while we might give to trade companies, we will ultimately retain direct control over, and that means more than anything else, we won't have to worry about rebellions, and it'll actually increase our strength in the world. We go ahead and peel off the French remaining coastline, as well as Roussillon from Aragon and southern Sardinia. We go ahead and just give those territories to our client states, and that really seals up our border with the world in the west. We will still have to get the French out of Europe. Ultimately, though, that means we just now need to focus on the east and on the colonies, and that'll be rather straightforward. We'll go ahead and just start moving into Asia. We will probably have to fight one war with Muscovy. At any rate, thank you very much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. We're not quite out of the woods yet.